This is episode number 25 with public speaking expert Dustin Mathews.
Welcome to the Multiply Your Business podcast, where we bring you inspiring interviews with top entrepreneurs on how they generated more leads, closed more sales, made more money, developed the mindset they needed to be successful, and how they built the business and lifestyle they always dreamed of. We'll teach you how to do this too. Broadcasting from the Black Card Book Studio, here is your host, Scott Morrison.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome in again to another episode of the Multiply Your Business podcast. This is episode number 25, and boy, do we have a treat for you today. So if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a marketer, if you are a professional in your business, you're trying to reach more people, you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to multiply it, you're trying to expand what you're doing, truly one of the best ways to do that is through public speaking. And I know you guys are interested in this because we get questions all the time around public speaking. How do I book speaking gigs? How do I craft a presentation? I should speak, but I'm kind of afraid of doing it. I don't really know how to get over that fear. And we are going to answer all those questions for you today on this episode with Dustin Mathews. Now, Dustin's a friend of mine. He is the founder and CEO of Speaking Empire. He's branded himself with the Irresistible Offer Architect. He's an expert in direct marketing, done tons of marketing for a number of years. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, Fox News, US Today, Inc., bunch of other platforms. He's spoken at all the major events and conferences around the United States for a number of years now, and he truly knows what he's doing and what he's talking about in marketing, but more specifically in speaking, in presentations, and in doing all these things we talk about, getting gigs, crafting your presentation, monetizing them, and really making it worth your while. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. If you are interested in speaking, take some notes. Write down everything you hear. We have more notes for you on multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/025. Also, please share this with somebody else. Who else do you know that wants to do or is doing public speaking that could benefit from what we're about to share with you with Dustin Mathews? I think you're going to love this. So with that introduction and without any further ado, I bring you my friend, Dustin Mathews. Welcome back in again today to another episode of the podcast. Today we have my good friend Dustin Mathews who is joining us. Dustin, how you doing today, bud?
Doing fabulous. Yourself?
I'm doing great, thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Very prosperous one.
I hope so. I think it will be. That's the plan, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. You are the founder, co-founder, I should say, and CEO of Speaking Empire. And what your company does is you train people on how to do public speaking, booking gigs, how to monetize those. And we have a ton of listeners asking about speaking. So I'd like to talk about that a bunch if we can here in a few minutes. Before we get to that, though, I want you, share your story a bit about how Speaking Empire came to be, some of the cool marketing things you've done in the past, and then tell people a little bit why you do what you do.
Now, Scott, is this a 3-hour podcast that I can tell the full, complete story?
Go for it. We'll splice it down, huh?
No, I'm just kidding. I know people's time is valuable, and when I listen to podcasts too, I want the nuggets. So sure. I got started reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and thought I was going to be the next real estate millionaire. You read that book, Scott?
I have, yeah. Tremendous book.
It's classic. I mean, even if you don't do real estate or care about real estate, it's a book on entrepreneurship to me. So
I think in a few decades, it's going to be remembered, maybe not as fondly as Think and Grow Rich, but it'll be remembered very fondly.
For sure. I agree. Like I will remember it fondly because it had that much. It set me on my path. So That book I read out of college, and I was going to be a computer engineer, very techie, nerdy guy, and still am. But nonetheless, I read that book, got excited about real estate, and I actually took action, and I went down to the real estate investor club where people were trading deals. And to me, it seemed like the stock market because they were saying, I got a 3-2 block, and they were using all these terms that I had no idea about. So I kind of retreated out to the vendor area because those people wanted to talk to me. You know, they wanted to sell me something. So I wanted to talk to them and pick their brains. So
sure.
I met my current partner, the guy I used to work for, and now I'm a partner with in Speaking Empire, Dave Van Hoos. I met him there and I said, listen, teach me how to buy a house and I'll come work for free. Basically what I learned from Rich Dad and Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, while I was there, I discovered marketing. And I said, wow, you can put words on paper and get people to take action, or you can put words in email and get people to like buy things or donate to a charity. And I said, wow, this is cool. I wish I had taken some of these classes at school, but I didn't because I was a techie. And so along the path there, I ended up going out and becoming my own sort of guru. I teamed up with somebody in the business credit space, showed entrepreneurs how to get business, and had a good ride for that. And then my partner, Dave, now came back to me and he said, hey, you know, all these people are asking me about speaking, how I speak and sell from the stage and get people excited. And I said, that's funny. All these people are asking me about marketing. And so Dave's like, let's do a seminar. And so we put on our first seminar. We put 90-something folks in the room on short notice, 30 days marketing notice. And good. We did our first seminar and Speaking Empire was born. So that's the condensed version.
When was that? How long ago was that?
What is it, 2017? I want to say 2009.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I say it like that because we were doing this part-time. Like I was running product launches. Dave was actually a hired gun, if you want to call it that, someone that speaks and sells your product for you. And so we were doing this part-time, wasn't full-time yet. And then we took off. We did our first seminar. We got a client that paid us 5 figures. And then we're like, wow, this is real. Let's make this full-time. And that's what we did.
That's cool. So as you guys are training, and your whole team, there's not just 2 of you anymore. They have a whole team and whole staff behind you now. Are you always putting on seminars, or how are you training people on speaking?
Yeah, that's a great call. You know, speaking itself, good question. Speaking itself kind of lends itself to kind of learning it in a live environment. But if that weren't the case, Dave and I and the people on the team here at Speaking Empire, we come from like live education backgrounds. So even though that we've got all these sophisticated tools online and Skillshare and all these classes where you can learn online, sure, we're old school. Like we love to get people in a room. We love to demonstrate certain things and teach that way. And so we do a lot of workshops here in Clearwater, Florida. And we do big national events all over. So that's our preferred way because people can just come and get stuff done versus just learn, just get stuff done.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said, too, about leaving your work for a couple of days, leaving the office for a couple of days, and just immersing yourself in a topic, what you're going to learn. I think you guys do a great job of that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that.
Sure thing. And you know, you guys have perhaps the most unique office I've ever heard of. So why don't you share that a little bit?
We just bought a church. Every time I say that, it reminds me of that movie that's We Bought a Zoo.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Which is my wife's favorite movie now. It moved up the list. So I'm like, what's your favorite movie now? And she said that one. So I think of that. So we bought a church. And the reason why is, you know, we do a lot of events and we did them at hotels. Yeah. And if you're the CEO or financial person in your business and you're looking at the statements, you're seeing a lot of money going to hotels. And we said, wow, what if we invested that money into our own building, a real tangible asset, and did our trainings in there? And so we found a church. It was a great deal. It actually was, they did seminars here, kind of like, you know, marriage counseling, alcohol recovery. So they were already doing events, but in a different space. And so it's got a great office set up, you know, for running a church, and it's got a downstairs room for doing events, basically. And so we bought a church, and we're rehabbing it and remodeling it now, and it's the international headquarters of Speaking Empire now.
Love it. In Clearwater or St. Pete?
It's in Clearwater.
Okay,
so
cool.
We used to be in St. Pete, and now we moved over to the Clearwater side, which people enjoy because the beach is awesome.
And in Florida, by the way, for the listeners, I was over that way over New Year's Day and on the Gulf side of the coast. Beautiful part of the country. So very cool. Let's unpack speaking a little bit and talk about that, because I know that's a lot of the meat of what people are looking for is help on doing speaking gigs. One of the questions I get a lot is, so I want to speak. How do I do it? And it's kind of, that's about it. I'm sure you get something similar. What would you say to that person?
Trial by fire. That's the short answer. But let me make it so everyone connects and bonds. And part of speaking is just storytelling. Really, at the end of the day, if you think about how like stuff was passed through history, if you think like I've got Dexter now, my first son, he's 2.5. He's starting to talk. We're starting to teach him. We're starting to read him bedtime stories. But if you think about it, at the end of the day, speaking, all it is storytelling. Yeah. Yes, there's techniques and what you wear and how you breathe and all that. But it's trial by fire. And let me share a quick story here. So I think everyone should know that listens to this. I actually am the guy that was deathly afraid of speaking. So even before you get the cognition of I want to speak, there's a lot of people that think they want to speak, but they have that little kind of fear deep inside. And I was the classic example of that, Scott. While I was at school at FSU, in order to graduate, you had to take public speaking. So I signed up for the class. I go, there's 300 students in an auditorium with the whole stadium seating. I'm looking around saying, oh my goodness. And the professor finally walks out on stage and he proceeds and he says, listen, you're going to have to do 10 speeches. 3 are going to be in front of all 300 people. The other are going to be in smaller groups and break out. And so be prepared to write some speeches. And I'm looking around at people thinking like, are you hearing this guy? Are you real? And so I actually retreated. I left and I said, you know what? I'll take this class some other time. So next semester rolls around. I got to take this thing to graduate. Otherwise, the parents are going to be really unhappy with me. Sure. I got to graduate, right? So I go and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can find a smaller section. Or maybe, there's like, a more intimate gathering. So there's less people that I have to speak in front of, which is like totally the opposite of what I want now, which is funny. And so I go back, I find myself in the same part of campus. I find myself entering that same building. And again, it's the 300 students. The professor gives the same spiel again, 10 speeches. So I would love to tell everyone listening that I stayed there and I knocked out those 10 speeches, but I retreated. And what's fun,
I'm surprised to hear that, by the way, because I've seen you speak and it seems so natural.
Well, I think that's life. Speaking is kind of like personal development for a lot of people that don't naturally want to get up in front of folks. And so for me, I left again and I was so motivated. And I think it's funny in life. I'm sure you can relate when you're so motivated by something or to not do something, you work pretty hard. And so I went to the library. I started asking people, do you really have to take this class to graduate? Are there any loopholes? And I found one. And fortunately for me in high school, Scott, I was chasing a girl. Yes, I was chasing a girl. So I took an after-school class. I did this on my own merit, and it was called Model United Nations, where we would pretend we were United Kingdom, and we would go and argue their points. Now, to me, it didn't matter that I had to speak in front of people because my eye was on the girl and not the actual speaking. And so because I did that, they said, if you get the teacher to sign off on it, you send that to the school, the college, you can get out of it. So I didn't leave anything to chance. I was so motivated to not public speak. I wrote the letter for the teacher and I said, teacher, please sign off on this as long as you think it's okay. And so he signed it. He changed a word or two because that's what history teachers do. And then I sent it. And so I actually got out of public speaking in school.
That's funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Before, so that was that. So then how did I get into speaking? A lot of people ask me after I share that story. Well, Dave at the time when I was working doing the real estate stuff, Dave was closing on his condo and he said, Dustin, and I was Dave's little errand boy. And so I would run around with Dave and he didn't know how to turn a computer on. And I had that fancy tech degree. And so I turned his computer on and Dave said, listen, I can't do the seminar that we've planned for tonight. You're going to have to do it. And I said, wait, you don't understand. I was the guy that found the loophole to get out of public speaking, only like a year and a half ago. Like like I'm not the guy you want up there.
Right.
So
you're looking for a loophole again, right?
I was looking for it, but he got me this time. Dave's pretty persuasive. And so I did the seminar. And here's what I realized. I got up on stage and yes, I had the butterflies. And yes, I was nervous. I have a baby face, or at least I used to have a baby face. And so if you can imagine a 16-year-old looking kid, I wasn't 16 at the time, but if you can imagine a young person up on stage, I started to talk about foreclosure investing and everything that I knew. And I was amazed that 60-year-old, 50-year-old people were looking at me like as if I were the expert. When I was up there on the stage, they were like, wow, I have something to learn here. And so when I got off the stage, I got mobbed. People were asking me questions. And in my head, mentally at the time, I thought, no one's going to pay attention to me. I look young. People don't respect the young because there's nothing to be learned. They don't have enough life experience. And so that all went away as soon as I set foot on stage. And so I said, wow, there's something to this speaking thing that I've been avoiding. And so I said, I've got to share this with others. And that's kind of the story behind Speaking Empire. I was so afraid of speaking. Now I've seen what it's done. And so, Scott, to answer your question, you said, how do you do it? Well, I had trial by fire. You just got to get up there and start doing it.
Right.
Now, I know some people freak out about that or they don't like that answer. And so I say there is a system for speaking. And so we teach a 5-part system here at Speaking Empire where you warm up the crowd, you tell your story, you make an offer. And what I mean by offer is you give real value to people. You share case studies and testimonials, and then you make some sort of close. And that can be raise money for your charity, opt into your list, or buy a product or service. And it can be that book that you've got now. And so if you have a process, I find a lot of people have confidence in that, because getting up there and just doing it, for some people that are very detailed, they want more than that.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
We teach a framework at Speaking Empire, a 5-part framework that really eases the fears and gives you confidence to get up in front of a crowd.
So one of the old sayings I've heard a lot is that, public speaking is often people's biggest fear, and death is second. So that means they'd rather be in the coffin than give eulogy at a funeral.
Right.
And you're kind of alluding to a lot of it already. I get being prepared. Perfect way. What are other ways people can kind of get over this fear of speaking?
Absolute webinars. So, it's hard. I think people fear being in front of others and basically making a fool of themselves. And it's, Tony Robbins, I think, is the one that created or coined fear is false evidence appearing real. Mm-hmm. And so it's that perception that, oh gosh, what if I screw up? They're all going to laugh at me. And so I get it. I mean, I don't want to look stupid either. I don't want to screw up in front of others. And it's easy just to say, so what? Like, what if that happens? What if the 50 people in front, it's 50 people out of the whole world or even your marketplace? But nonetheless, the easiest thing to do for most folks is start with a webinar, teleseminar, or heck, what we're doing right here, a podcast, because no one's watching you. And so I say the easiest thing to do is actually practice it in a room where there's nobody, or to do a webinar or teleseminar would be the first step for someone that just has that,
Sure.
that fear, those butterflies.
You get a lot more comfortable just by repeating and saying it and doing it, even if nobody's there for it in front of you.
Right.
That makes sense. Now, let's back up even a step. We've been operating on the assumption that everyone listening wants to speak and thinks that they should. So let's answer that first. I think you and I just kind of inherently know this, but entrepreneurs, authors, professionals in their field, experts, why should they look for speaking opportunities and do public speaking?
I mean, I could rattle off a long list, but I think Dave's story of Foreclosures Daily is pretty good, that it encapsulates that list. So I want to share that one.
Yeah,
so
great.
When Dave got started, he built this foreclosure website. So basically, we went down to the courthouse and we found all these foreclosures. Now, this was before the internet was super big and popular as it is today. And so we would go to the courthouse, dig up foreclosures, and put them into a website. And we would go sell that website. So he dumped invested $30,000 in developing this website. He made it awesome. It had all the foreclosure information. And how many customers do you think he got in his first month?
I'm going to guess very few.
He got 0. Yeah. So he did what most people do, Scott. It's what I did too when I first got started. I made the product better, which does not include marketing and selling it. I just made the product better. And just like the Field of Dreams says, if you build it, they will come. I figured if you build it better, they will come, or Dave did. And so in his second month, 0 customers. And so that's where he had these credit card bills and he said, I got to sell this thing. And so he started doing the 6-foot rule, which is 1-to-1. And he started selling it 1-to-1. And then we had this idea, let's do a seminar. So we did it at a Denny's restaurant. That's when I was with Dave at the time, at a Denny's restaurant.
At Denny's, huh?
Listen, it wasn't the most ideal, but we put all the money into the website. And so we didn't really have money for the fancy hotel yet.
That's great.
And so, we got people.
You can start anywhere, folks.
You absolutely. We have clients that do it in their basement. Like they invite people into their home. Some people might not like that, but we have a client in Chicago in the real estate space. She invited folks. She actually did the seminar without her shoes on because she had a little bit of anxiety. And she's like, I'm just going to take my shoes off and make it feel comfortable. She did know some of the folks in the crowd. and she made sales. But nonetheless, why do seminars, or why speak, I should say?
Yeah.
Well, when you do that, you are seen as a rock star. Just like when I set foot on that stage with the baby face and I said, no one's going to pay attention to me. It's not the case. It's weird. It's just baked into society, if you want to call it that. When rock stars set foot on stage, people go wild. Now, I know not everyone in our world goes wild, but there's still that effect like, wow, that person's on a platform. That person's on a stage, and people look up to that. So your credibility, your authority goes up. You can charge higher prices. If you ever try to sell stuff online or on a phone, no way are you going to be able to sell as much as if you meet in person. It's why corporate America still flies people around the country to close deals, because face-to-face, belly-to-belly is often the best way to get the sale done. And so it also gives you leverage, Scott. So if you had to go out and meet with clients all day one-to-one, that's not very leverageable. It's hard to scale that way. But if you can invite 100 people to an event where you speak and give a pitch or presentation, you can really leverage and grow your business big time.
Yeah, it's one of the fastest ways to grow, get people paying attention to you. And I like what you shared too about the expert part of that. If you speak, if you get media appearances, if you write a book, you're instantly perceived as an expert, and speaking is one of the best ways to do that. So good stuff.
Absolutely. Can we just shed light on everyone that's listening in? I mean, most likely, I would say a good majority of people listening to this podcast will have gotten here, I would say, through an email, but because you came to a seminar in which you were offered a book. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's one of the big ways for sure.
It's a big way. So if you think about what's happening there, they're leveraging seminars to sell, to make people authors and really spread the message that way. And I know some people will come through the digital space and online, but the core of the business model is actually running seminars. So if you look at it, you guys are here because of a seminar. Speaking Empire was born that way. Even doctors and dentists do inpatient seminars where they invite people to their office, and they do, lunch and learns, and they do customer appreciation events to sell or get people excited about their product or service.
Sure. And that transitions into, I think, an important, point. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. Now I want to speak. I have this desire to, I'm overcoming my fears. I think one of the most common questions then is, how do I book speaking gigs? But you don't always have to book a gig, right? You can put on your own.
Yeah, I'm really now talking to the folks listening in that have a subscriber list. So somebody that has an email list, or maybe people that have bought from you, and you can email or even direct mail. Yes, even direct mail.
It works really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of mailing those people and inviting them to come to your office or to a hotel, or if you're just getting started, to a Denny's. Just something to invite people and do your first speech. Now, if you don't have that and you're listening to this, how do you do it? Well, you've got to put yourself in the environment, and that means go to other people's seminars and events and say, listen, I'm a speaker for hire. And then also, I'm going to give you an awesome one. This is underground resource. I'm just testing it right now. There is a website, a mobile app. It's called Thumbtack. Okay. Thumbtack Pro is the one that you want. Now, Scott, this blew me away. Thumbtack is kind of like Angie's List. So if you want a good contractor or painter, you go to this mobile app and you can find one in your area. Well, there's a category for motivational and professional speakers, and even public speaking trainers, which is right up our alley. And so basically what happens is, within a 100-mile radius of your town, you can say, I'm a professional speaker. And what will happen is, everyone looking for a professional speaker will come to your email inbox. And what you do is you actually bid on the job. Now, what's interesting, Scott, about this is, if you're a fee-paid speaker, you would type your fee in. But if you subscribe to that and what we teach at Speaking Empire, sometimes it's advantageous to show up for free, do a presentation, and then sell or offer whatever it is that you have to sell. And so I was amazed just at Tampa Bay, Scott, and I know you're close, the amount, because you're like, okay, how many people would even know about this app that's holding an event or looking for a speaker? I roughly get about 4 to 5 of these per week just for Tampa Bay area in a 100-mile radius of people looking for a speaker. Now, the second thing I want to share here is I thought instantly, okay, maybe all these gigs are going to be free gigs or they're only going to pay like $250. I've been pleasantly surprised that I've seen all the way up to $7,500 to come and speak to a group. And so you've got the range of everything from, to free to $250 all the way up to $7,500. And I think right now that's a ground floor opportunity before a lot of people figure that out.
So that's called Thumbtack, you said?
Yeah, you'll actually want to get, if you're a speaker and looking for gigs, you'll actually want to get the Pro, Thumbtack Pro. So Thumbtack would be for if you needed the contractor, but if you were the contractor, you use Thumbtack Pro. So since you're the speaker, you want to download Thumbtack Pro.
Cool. We'll link that up in the show notes here. I've never heard of that. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, brand new.
So what are other ways you can either book yourself into speaking gigs or create audiences to speak in front of?
The easy answer is a speakers bureau.
Okay.
There's bureaus out there. There's brokers out there that will make the connection for you. I generally don't like to rely on them because that's putting your life in your own hands or in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
And so I like to control my own destiny. So when I first got started, classic example of how to control your destiny. When I first got started, I found all the gurus or all the trainers and educators in the real estate space. And I painstakingly went to their website. I opted into their email list, and I got their direct mailing address. By law, if you send emails through an autoresponder or CRM, you have to have a physical mailing address.
Correct.
So when I first got started, I created a list of 50. I found 50 people. These were targets that I said, man, I would really love to speak on their stage one day or on a webinar. And so I put together this list and I mailed a newsletter. I wrote it, a 4-page little newsletter, and I mailed it by mail, not email, because email, we all get inundated. Am I right about that?
Oh, for sure.
You get too many emails. Like I get that question, Dustin, why didn't you just send an email? Because I didn't want it to get deleted and forgotten. So I painstakingly got the 50 names. I made the newsletter. I stuck stamps on envelopes and I mailed it to the 50 people once a month, so that I could have top of mind awareness with the centers of influence that could put me on a stage or a webinar. And within 3 months, I'm not going to tell you it happened overnight. Within 3 months, I got a call from a guy in California that said, hey, listen, I had a guy cancel on me, a speaker cancel on me. Can you fly out last minute? And I said, yes. And so the thing is, you got to create what Chet Holmes teaches is the Dream 100. Who are the top 50? Who are the top 100 people that are doing events in your space or webinars? And how are you going to get on their radar? And so I'm a fan of direct mail. You can do all sorts of crazy things like Facebook ads. You can actually target those 50 people now on Facebook and run an ad, need a speaker. There's no shortage for sure of ways to market yourself as a speaker to get people to know about you.
Yeah, totally. Back to your newsletter, your direct mail campaign. What was in your newsletter?
Oh, good question. So I actually, to give you the full story on this one, I created a newsletter called Dirty Talk.
Okay.
Now I should say some people find offense to that name, and I get it. The reason why I called it Dirty Talk was I was targeting alpha male men speakers in the real estate space. Like when you think of the word closer and I crushed it and then, I got 100% of the room to sign up. If you think of that sort of energy, that's who I was marketing to. So I had to cut through the clutter, even in direct mail, and I had to create an edgy name. And so for me, I created Dirty Talk because everyone was a speaker that I was marketing to. So it was kind of funny and it was kind of edgy. And so I created the name, number one. Number two, what I put in there is I featured a speaker of the month. So since they were all speakers and event organizers, I promoted them. So every month they would want to open it and see if they were featured that month. I also just talked about stories, Scott, of what was going on in the industry, very much like your website where you talk about events, the website that you have where you just let people know about all the events that are going on. In that way, I did that in print. And I just told the story. So if I went to a seminar, I took pictures and said, hey, here I am at the Black Card Books event. Here's what's going on. Here's what I learned. You guys should really come check it out. So it was kind of like the pulse of what was going on, kind of like not gossipy, but like what's going on in the industry from my point of view. And so people wanted to hear that. It was interesting,
Good value you're adding there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I put here was a key strat. I put everyone's name on the back of it. So on the last page, I really wasn't 4 pages of writing. it really was, I featured somebody, and then on the back page, that didn't really change much. I had my contact details, and then I said, here are all the dirty talkers receiving this. And so by social proof, they would look at the list, they'd see their name, of course.
So it wasn't like personalized, like here's, here, Dustin, here's your newsletter. It was everybody that you're sending to is listed on the back.
Yeah, personalization was expensive at that time, so I couldn't do that. But I used social proof, so I'd put Scott's name, I'd put your name on it, and then you'd look for your name, and then you'd stumble across a other couple people that you knew, and you're like, oh, well, he or she gets it? This must be worth reading.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's what I did when I first got started.
Love that. That's fascinating. So to book gigs, you can do the newsletter, you can do direct mail, you can do Facebook ads we talked about, use the Thumbtack app. What are ways that people could kind of create their own event? You talked about in the basement or the doctor's office who has a free clinic or something. What are ways that people can create an event?
Absolutely. I had one, when you were going through that list, I have one more that's old-fashioned and works. So I think of one of our clients, Jason Palliser. He's in the real estate space. And as you can tell, Dave and I both come from the real estate space. So we have a lot of real estate clients and case studies. And so I was shocked about that. I'm like, so how did you get to be on the Rich Dad, Poor Dad stage, essentially, which was a big, massive stage? And he's like, Dustin, you know what? All I did, I picked up the phone. I called the main number. I asked for the person that's responsible for booking speakers, and I had a conversation with that person. So don't underestimate picking up the phone, even calling the main line and fumbling your way through and making it happen. So, old school absolutely works. So I wanted to share that with you because it's great. Classic. Anyone can do it. The challenge is, Scott, most people don't even want to pick up the phone, and face rejection, but it does work, and it's very powerful.
I'll add to that before we move on to, most events will have a page where you can contact us. Nothing wrong with contacting them through there. Or reaching out to them, offering to sponsor. Now, yes, you have to pay to speak in some cases, but generally that's well worth your investment. Those are other ways that you can get on some more stages of other people's events.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a big subscriber of pay to play. So once you've spoken, or if you just have the confidence in yourself and the gumption, you can actually pay to get yourself on stage. So if you know that you want to speak in front of 150 executives, go to the promoter and ask them if there's an opportunity. They may say no, but say, okay, great. What would it cost for me to sponsor a lunch? And they would be like, you're willing to pay me to be? And they, most of them will be happy with that.
Good question to ask.
Yeah. So you'd ask, Scott, the question was how do you do your own event?
Yeah, for sure.
Was that the question? Yeah. So how you do your own event is you set a date. Now, I know that sounds trivial, but you'd be amazed. In our inner circle, our mastermind group, I remember a client, and he's like, I got to do a seminar. He was an MC, or still is an MC. And I said, listen, to get to the next level, you really ought to do your own events. And he's like, yeah, that's good. The challenge was he would never set a date. And so if you never set a date, if you never put it on the calendar, nothing gets done. It's like that saying, without a deadline, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
And so people freak out too. Like once they set a date and they're trying to market and get people there and no one's registering, don't worry. Stick to that date and just work harder. It's how it is for all of us in the business. Everyone likes to register last minute. And if you never set that date and commit to it, then it just never happens. So number one, set the date. That's obvious.
Totally agree with that.
Number two, it's kind of like what they teach in network marketing. Who is your, I don't want to say family and friends, but who are the people that would be the perfect, audience, or who would be the perfect to attend your event? Like who would be the ideal? Who should be there, right? So put that list together because I'm sure you know of somebody. Then next, what I want you to do is who is organizing those people. And what I mean by organizing is who's putting on similar events, who has a website, who has a mailing list, who has an email list of all of those type of people. So for example, in the real estate space, there are associations in every city in America. Associations of realtors. And in some cities, they have like 4 or 5 because it's so big. I imagine LA has probably got like 20. Tons of them. So they have a list of realtors. And so you may ask yourself, okay, these are realtors. I'm not in real estate, but they're all independent salespeople. I have sales training. could I invite them? And so you could go to the board of realtors, you could join that board or association of realtors as a sponsor. And then when you do that, they let you advertise and send emails and send direct mail to their list. And so I like to advertise or get people to my seminars with my own database, if you've got that. If you don't, you've got to identify who are the influencer out there that has a database or has a following, can be online. And then you want to get those people on your team by volunteering, by giving them value, by giving them your product or service for free, whatever you have to do to get somebody in your corner to promote. And then there's all the paid strategies, which I usually reserve for advanced folks because you can do Facebook advertising and direct mail. But that's generally once you have done a seminar, you have that confidence and you're willing to invest a little bit more money to get people there. There for sure no shortage of ways. But I generally, when people are just getting started, your own internal list, your customer list, and then find influencers in your area that can help fill your event and figure out a way to motivate them.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned hustle still works.
Yes, it's my favorite.
Absolutely. So what are ways, that people can monetize their presentation?
This is a great question. Dave and I I'll let you in some industry lingo. Dave and I come from a world, my partner Dave, of a world that is affectionately back in the day was called singing for supper, meaning we were never the motivational speakers to get up and get paid $10,000 in order to show up. We would show up to any crowd, any audience when we were first getting started to do a presentation, and at the end we would sell. We basically would sing, and if we didn't sing good enough or if we didn't present good enough and make an offer, we weren't eating that night. Right. And so that's where that term sing for supper comes from. And so that doesn't always mean that you have to sell something. And I know some people have a stigma about that. And so ways to monetize your speech, number one, is let's talk about folks that are in corporate America or in places where they can't sell. Well, number one is you should be building your email list or your social media following. So when you speak, you should make a call to action to say, listen, if you enjoyed my speech or my talk and you want to get these bonuses, and you should have something enticing like a checklist or copies of your slides or something that people would just salivate over. You tell them to go to a website or you pass out a piece of paper to have them put their contact details down. So number one, you should build a list. Number two, if you're in that environment where you can't sell, like tell people, listen, I have a product and it's $500, then what I would say is set up strategy sessions, meaning sit downs or just one-on-ones with people and say, listen, I'm going to be at this conference for the next couple hours or the next day, and I have the ability to sit down and help 5 people here build out a business strategy or a health plan or whatever it is that you can build value for people. And so if you're interested in that, come up and give me your business card. And so if you notice, I said 5 people, and I also told them that I was only going to be there for the next day. So I've created urgency. This isn't the stuff, this is behind the scenes of what I just shared.
Sure.
So I created urgency and scarcity. And so I drove people to come sit down with me. Now, if you can't sell from the stage, great. In that session that you're building value for somebody, then sell them there at the end of that session where you say, listen, here's the value, here's the roadmap. Would you like me to help you get there? Would you like me to help you write out your book? Would you like me to help you build your speech? Would you like me to help you do, create a customized diet plan? And then you just go back basically into sales. So that's another way to monetize. The next easiest, obvious one is if you can sell from the stage, you do your presentation and actually sell not just your book. And I know a lot of people listening in will have a book or want to have a book. Because a book is only worth $20, in most people's heads. If you ask people on the street, how much is the value of a book, most will say, $19.95, $29.95. And so there are ways to create a more advanced version of your book, a product with audio and transcripts and checklists, stuff that's not included in your book and can't be included, that will be of immense value to people, and you can sell your product and service. So those are 3 quick, easy ways to monetize your speech.
Yeah, those are great. And I'm wondering too, what works best. So you're making a presentation, you're at somebody's event and you're speaking, and you want to collect before you even get to the sale, maybe you want to collect as much contact information as you can. Does I see a lot of speakers will do text this code, this number to get a special thing. or go to this website, what are some ways that you can collect email addresses that work as well?
Absolutely. I got a couple new school strategies and old school, and never underestimate the old school, because new school technology goes out. And so, our cell phones don't work in certain hotels or environments. So now people can't text. So obviously you said number one is the text message. I love that. And I love to do that early. So you actually have to tell people, this is my big advice. Tell people, guys, take out your phones right now. And I want you to text, and you show it on the screen as well if you have slides.
Yeah.
I want you to text this number, this name and this to this number. And when you do, I'm going to send you this, this, and this. So you have to make an offer, and you also have to tell them to do it. Because if you're willy-nilly about it, like, hey guys, if you want my slides, go ahead and do it. You'll get some people. But if you tell them what to do, and you say, listen, whip out your phones. You're going to love what I have to give to you. So do this now, and just take the time in your speech, and then sell them on the value that they're going to receive. Number one. Number two, always, even if you're going to do that, always have a paper form backup. So if the internet goes out, or some hotels nowadays, I don't know if you know this, guys, nowadays they have these cell phone blockers in the hotel that actually will shut down the cell phone, so you can't text out. Because some promoters want you to focus on what's going on stage and not be distracted. So good old-fashioned paper works the same way. Say, listen, if you want my slides, if you want this, at the end of my talk, you can go back and sign up for this. So paper, a paper basically order form. Mm-hmm. The other way, it's old-fashioned, is the business card. So you say, listen, if you've got a business card, which is becoming trickier now because less people have business cards, especially if you go to a tech conference. Good luck finding a business card there. Usually the people with business cards at a tech conference are the people that have the money. They're not the techies. That's sometimes a good thing too. So like the VC people, and they've got business cards. So those are three easy ways for you to do it. You can do a raffle. You can tell people to open up your Facebook page and go there now. So there's multiple ways. Those are my favorite ways. Mm-hmm. And as a quick lesson, Scott, I never tell people go to this website and go opt in. And the reason why is most people won't do it. They have good intentions. Like, oh yeah, I'd really like to get it. But if you think about any time you go to an event, you get overwhelmed. You forget like what you did 5 minutes ago or what the speaker said 7 minutes ago. And so I always make them and tell them to do it now. Do the text method is the best and easiest strategy, and paper is my backup.
Got it. Yeah, there's so many distractions at an event. So you're right. And like what you said, to just tell people what to do, and they follow along, they'll start doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. So you and Dave and you're in Speaking Empire, you guys put on Amplify, which is one of your signature events. And in that, you cover a lot of what we talked about here today, correct? Can you go a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to do so. Yeah, I mean, here at Speaking Empire, we believe that everyone has a message inside, especially as an entrepreneur, business owner, or even an author, right? Like you have a book. And so now the question is, okay, great. You have a message inside, and for some people it's, well, what is my message, and how do I craft it in a way to monetize it or really to get people into action? Because I know not everyone listening to this has a product to sell, but they may have a charity to represent, or they want to fundraise. And so what you want to do is you want to figure out what your message is, craft it in a way that monetizes or get people into action, and then you want to amplify it. And so that's what we do at the Amplify Experience is we kind of teach you about the business of speaking, like kind of the stuff we've talked about here. We also teach you about delivery. So like, how do you even craft a message? And then how do you deliver that message with maximum impact to get people, excited and into action? And so we do a 3-day event with a bonus day called the Amplify Experience a few times a year on the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States. And everyone's invited, and if they're interested, they can find details at amplifyexperience.com.
Very cool. What are some other ways people can connect with you?
Yeah, good old-fashioned speakingempire.com. So we've got tons of marketing resources, speaking resources at speakingempire.com. The big thing that folks that will want to check out there is we're offering a blueprint. So if you're really concerned about, Dustin, what do I say? How do I structure my message? definitely take a look at the blueprint. Opt in for that at speakingempire.com. You may have to click once or twice on the website, but definitely get that. You should have that in your arsenal for any speech that you have to write.
Yeah, and for the listeners, Dave and Dustin and the team, they're incredible at really helping you develop your message, craft it, put together your presentation, understand how to monetize it, and then all the outside stuff, how to put on your own event, how to book speaking gigs, how to market yourself appropriately. Much of that is done through Amplify. So if you're serious about speaking and if you want to make this a important component of your business and how you're going to put yourself out there, highly recommend check out speakingempire.com, attend Amplify. They have so many good resources. So Dustin, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it. And, I'll say this. I usually like to kind of close with this or offer this to folks, is especially now because we're recording this and, this is a new birth for a lot of people. And so whatever your goal is, it could be to be a speaker. That's great if that's what you want to do. Or I should say just do speaking. You may not call yourself a speaker, but do speaking on webinars or in front of a live room. It may be your goal is to lose some weight, right? It could be to find the relationship of your dreams, whatever that is, business or even personal, right? The love of your life, maybe. Here's what I tell people. I say, listen, just do one small action a day. And what I mean by small action is listen to a podcast, right? Like this one. Yeah. Go on in the internet and research. Pick up the phone and call an expert and see, if there's a potential deal. Read an article. Just take one small action a day, even if you're working a job, doing something that isn't your passion necessarily, but you're still doing it. Just do one small action a day towards whatever your goal is. And by the end of a year, you'll have taken 365 actions towards your goal. And you'll be amazed at where you end up if you just chunk it out. And oftentimes it's not going to take you the whole year. But if you wait to the last minute and procrastinate like I used to do in college, it's a lot harder to build momentum. And so just take that one small action a day.
Perfect advice. And I couldn't agree more. Cool. Dustin, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be on.
And that's a wrap for today. My thanks again to Dustin Mathews for coming on. Listen, if you're interested in public speaking at all and playing that game and putting yourself out there and speaking in events or putting on your own events, if you want help on how to get over the fear of speaking, how to create your own presentation, how to monetize that, how to market yourself, how to do all these different aspects of public speaking, then check out speakingempire.com. Listen to the advice Dustin and Dave and their team give. It's incredible. They know what they're doing. And public speaking is truly one of the best ways to get yourself out there, to generate more leads, generate more sales, regenerate more revenue, and to really help your business grow and to help your business multiply. So if you enjoyed this and that this episode was helpful to you, please share it with someone else as well. Who else do you know that is doing public speaking now or would like to be doing more? You can share this through any of the major platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, also our Facebook page, facebook.com/multiplierbusiness. One other note as well, in the show notes here, multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/025, we will have all the different links that Dustin talked about, the Thumbtack Pro app and all the other things, and how to connect with Dustin. Please check that out. So that's what we have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you again soon.